Hey everybody, welcome to another Adventures Online. I am so excited that tonight we get a chance to look at another one of our key principles that we teach here at Welling Church in our various family ministries. Over the last 4 weeks, we've been looking at some key principles we teach our secondary age students. And so far, we've already looked at authentic faith, spiritual disciplines, moral boundaries, and meaningful friendships. And tonight's principle is one of my favorite, and it's wise choices. Much like in our last one we looked at, meaningful friendships, wise choices is all about wise and fools. And the Bible has a lot to say about how we can be someone who is wise and we can avoid being someone who becomes a fool. But unlike last time, in meaningful friendships, it really wasn't about our choices. In meaningful friendships, it's all about the choices our friends are making. Are they being wise or are they being fools? And this is so vitally important for you and I today. What we're going to be looking at in wise choices now is all about my decisions. What choices am I making? And really the big idea that we need to be getting across is this. Good decision making is more than simply choosing between right and wrong. It's about choosing the wise thing. And we're going to be looking at a very important key question a little bit later on and how we can make sure we are always doing the wise choice. An important verse we need to go to right away when looking at wise choices comes from the book of Ephesians, chapter 5, verses 15 through 17. It says this, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of the time, because the days are evil. Therefore do not be foolish, but understand what the will of the Lord is." There are so many amazing things that Paul is addressing here in this important topic of wise choices. He's telling the people in Ephesus, you need to look carefully how you walk. Paul uses this idea of walking to describe our choices as we go through life. It's like we are walking through life making this choice and that choice and this choice. And he says, hey, when you're going through life, you need to look carefully. You need to pay attention. You need to be focusing on that next step. I always think of it like this. If you're just walking through a park, sometimes the relaxed thing to do is to not think about where you are putting your feet. You're just enjoying everything around you. And a lot of us go through life just like that. We're not really paying attention to what we're doing or the decisions we're making. We're just enjoying life and going through doing the best we can. But this isn't what Paul wants us to do. Instead, he wants us to look carefully. We need to be making every choice we do very carefully, choosing to be wise and not unwise in the decisions we are making. It would be like walking through a dog park where no one has picked up any of the dog poo, and the dog poo is everywhere. If you're gonna walk from one side to the other, you're gonna look carefully how you walk. You're gonna be trying to make sure you don't step in anything as you go through. And that's exactly what Paul is talking about here. It is paying attention to every single choice we make in our life. And for you and I, especially when we are young and brand new at following Christ, we need to be very careful in the choices we make. Until we get in a habit of making the wise choice, we need to be looking carefully how we make these things. And here's the best part of this verse from Ephesians, is Paul is wanting us to not be unwise. He wants us to be wise. And as we looked at last time, a wise person is someone who knows the difference between right and wrong and chooses to do what is right, even when it's hard. That's what Paul wants us to be. He wants us to be someone who chooses to do what is right, even when it's hard. And here's the best part. The reason we need to do this is because the days are evil. And I don't think you have to think very hard. If you're in secondary school, you look around you and a lot of your classmates aren't doing good things. They are making very evil choices. They are making very poor choices. They are doing things that do not honor God, but instead dishonor what God has done. And because of that, because of what we are living in, because what we are surrounded in, we need to make the wise choice all the more. We need to do what is right all the more. And so therefore, Paul concludes, do not be foolish. A fool is someone who knows between right and wrong and chooses to do what is wrong. And it's not that they don't know, it's just they just don't care. They do not care about the consequences of making the wrong choice. They don't care that there could be grave consequences at school when you choose to disobey the teacher. They are fine with that. And we do not want to be a fool. We do not want to be someone who chooses to do what is wrong. We do not want to be someone who just goes through life not thinking about any of the things that we are doing. We want to be someone who thinks about every choice. Most people go through life asking the question, is this wrong? When it comes to decision making, they ask themselves the question, is this wrong? Is hanging out with him wrong? Is hanging out at this party wrong? Is watching this video wrong? And what they do by asking that question is really not the best question. Because just because something isn't wrong doesn't mean it's the wise thing to do. Just because it's not wrong to hang out with certain friends doesn't mean it's wise to continue being around them. Just because it isn't wrong to listen to some music or watch certain movies doesn't mean it's wise or a good thing for us to be allowing that into our life. Instead, we should ask a much better question. And that question is this: in light of past experiences, current circumstances, and future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? The reason this question is so great is this isn't what is the wise thing for everyone to do. No, it's saying, hey, what's the wise thing for me to do? Because the reality is this: what is wise for you may not be wise for me. And what is wise for her may not be wise for him. Wisdom becomes so different. And so we need to be asking, hey, what is wise for me? And when it comes to friends and they want you to do something and you're like, you know what, that's just not wise for me. You go ahead and do it. That's fine. I'm not saying you shouldn't. I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just saying for me, it's unwise. The precursor to this, what is the wise thing for me to do, is threefolded. The first is in light of past experience. So every time I hang out with him, I always seem to get in trouble. Or every time I stay up way late before an exam, I seem to get a bad result. In light of past experiences, what's the wise thing for me to do? If every time I hang out with her, I do things I regret, well, maybe I should learn from past experiences. The second is in light of current circumstances. What is the wise thing for me to do? Hanging out with your friends really late at night isn't a wrong thing, but when you have a big exam the next day, it may not be the wise thing to do to be out late with your friends. It may be time to do some revision, some time to get into the books and prepare for that exam. The other thing in light of current circumstances is what exam is tomorrow? For me, I was naturally good at maths. I never studied once for a maths exam, and I rarely missed a question on it. So if the exam the next day was a maths, well, in light of current circumstances, I can probably stay up late playing video games. Now, if it was English, something I struggled at a lot in school, well, if there was an English exam the next day, the wise thing to do for me would be to revise. And then after all of that, say a nice big long prayer before I go to bed at night, because it's going to take loads of revision and a miracle of God to pass an English exam for me. And so that is so important because current circumstances are so radically different for everyone. We may all have the same math exam tomorrow, but because we're all different at maths, the amount of revisioning we need to do is going to be drastically different. So the amount of time we can spend on that, what the wise thing for us to do, will look different for each person. The last precursor we need to ask when asking, hey, what is the wise thing for me to do, is in light of future hopes and dreams. What future hopes and dreams do you have for your life? Well, depending on what those are, drastically affects the choices we are making right now. If your future hopes and dreams are to go to university and study to get a good degree, well then you probably need to work hard at getting good scores now in school. You probably need to practice now at being good at writing papers and studying maths and science, depending on what that future hopes and dream is. If your future hopes and dreams is to meet a nice guy or a nice girl and get married one day, well, then we need to make wise choices now in our dating relationships so that we're not bringing baggage along, or even worse, that we're not doing something we regret and we miss out on the opportunity to date that special someone we finally meet. We do not want to make bad choices now that affect the future later. But here's the bigger deal. When we look at all of these wise choices, the most important thing to remember is that God knows what is wise for us. And not only does God know what is wise for us, He has better future hopes and dreams than we ever could have for our life. And what we need to be doing with our choices now is not only honoring God more than we have in the past, but choosing to do the choice that honors Him in the present, and most importantly, making choices that helps us live out His future hopes and dreams for us in the future. Another great passage we can look at when it comes to wise choices comes from the book of Proverbs, a whole book about wisdom and about making wise choices. But a few verses in chapter 9, specifically verses 9 through 12, really help us understand how important it is to have wise choices in our life. Let's look at it. Give instruction to a wise man, and he will be still wiser. Teach a righteous man, and he will increase in learning. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom, and the knowledge of the Holy One is insight. For by me your days will be multiplied, and years will be added to your life. If you are wise for yourself. If you scoff, you alone will bear it. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. And what Proverbs talks about over and over and over is that true wisdom comes from knowing God and making choices based on who we know God is. And the amazing thing is this, is that when we give instruction to a wise person, they become wiser. When you are making wise choices, it makes it easier to make even more wise choices. A wise person listens to those around him. A wise person takes instructions and gets better. And you and I, we want to be labeled as someone who makes wise choices. We do not want to go through life dishonoring God with our choices. We do not want to become evil like the majority of the people around us. We desperately want to honor God and follow Him. We want to live out His future hopes and dreams. That comes by not asking the wrong question. Hey, is this the wrong thing? Is this wrong? Is what I'm doing, is this choice, is there anything wrong with it? Instead, we need to ask a better question. In light of past experiences, current circumstances, and future hopes and dreams, what is the wise thing for me to do? I hope you will become someone who makes wise choices, that you will become someone who is characterized as being wise, that you do know the difference between right and wrong, and you choose to do what is right, even when it's hard. Thank you so much for joining us for Adventures Online. I look forward to having you back next week for another great adventure. See you soon.